All right, greetings, friends. Welcome back in. This is Sons Today. I'm Adam. Brian Peterson with me again this week. And in this particular episode of the program, we've got to talk about UCF West Virginia, Brian, a Saturday night game that does not go in UCF's favor. They dropped this one 31-21, although I don't know if it was really ever that close. This loss guarantees no bowl berth. It guarantees a second straight losing season, yada, yada, yada. A lot of questions after the game about stuff. We're going to get to all that, Brian, but let's just stay on the field for right now. 31-21. Again, for those who are scoring at home, if you're looking at your podcast player or your YouTube screen, you're like, wait a minute, how come this is out on a Monday or a Tuesday? Look, yesterday, Brian and I talked about, let's record something. And neither one of us were in the mood. Neither one of us were in the mood to talk about this. Neither one of us were ready mentally. I don't know if I hadn't had enough drinks or too many at that point. I'm not really sure where I was at that time. So we decided to hold off and do this on a Monday, let some time pass and let our thoughts get together, Brian. So let's just do this as always. People always bash on us for being negative. Tell me something good, Brian. Tell me something good. Tell me something positive that you took away. Tell me something that Brian W. Peterson feels good about in the UCF 31-21 loss to West Virginia.
If we're being positive, well, I mean, you commented we pushed this recording off for about 36 hours just because neither of us wanted to record it. I mean, the positive is we're recording it. Let's go positive. The positive is that the score was only a 10-point differential when it could have been much worse.
Okay.
That's the best positive you're going to get from me out of this game.
All right. I see where you go there. Yeah. I mean, like it didn't feel as close as the score may indicate, right? When you look back at the score and you're like, oh, wow, 10-point loss. It didn't feel as close watching it. But I mean, UCF certainly had opportunities. I mean, we're down 28-7 at one point and you chip away a little bit. Now, the problem is we had a kind of a garbage touchdown to RJ with about 5 minutes to go in the game. So probably doesn't get it as close. But they go down early. We get the ball, a quick 3 and out. West Virginia marches down. It did not look like anybody in UCF's defense was interested in tackling on that first drive. And you pointed out it was cold. Maybe they decided they didn't want to touch the ground. I don't know. We get the ball back, a decent drive, and then we go down, and Dylan Risk has an unfortunate fumble with Miles Montgomery on a pretended handoff. West Virginia goes back down, and they score again. We're in the hole 14-0. They battle back. RJ Harvey scores a nice touchdown. We're within it. And then, Brian, the backbreaker to me was that touchdown right before halftime. Again, it's 14-7. They're close to, they're in the red zone. They're in the right area, as Gus would call it, West Virginia is. And if we can just get a stop, maybe get them to a field goal attempt, maybe they miss it, maybe we block it. You never know. The tide in that game can turn largely because West Virginia got the ball back in the second half. They inexplicably throw a touchdown pass and take the lead there and score again out of the halftime. And at that point, it pretty much felt like the tide had shifted in against our favor.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this one before. UCF loses another game where the offense is unable to be consistently moving the ball. Penalties are still an issue. 3rd and 4th down defense is still an issue. And special teams is, less than par. So another game that we've seen time and time again this season and last season where UCF comes out flat and just does not find ways to win the game in the end. That 10-point game, the 31-21 final score for UCF is not indicative of how the game felt.
Yeah.
I did not ever feel like UCF was going to win the game after that first drive, which stalled. I'm sure most of you now, if you're on social media, you've seen the image of Gus yelling at quarterback Dylan Risk who came off the sideline. Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question? I want to get to that in a second, but while you said Dylan Risk, can I ask you, just you and me talking here, Brian? No one's listening. Sure. Don't worry about it.
I'm sure no one's listening anyway.
Yeah, it's probably fine. Were we wrong about Dylan Risk?
I don't know that we were wrong about Dylan Risk. I think he's probably still the best pure passer on the team that we've seen so far. We haven't seen enough of EJ Colson to know if he's comparable or better. Obviously, you and I are not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what's happening at practice. But I think that we've seen enough out of Dylan to know that he has potential, perhaps. He is still a redshirt freshman. This is only his 3rd start. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
3rd start, again, on the road. I wouldn't call it a hostile environment. The images that I saw of the stadium in West
It didn't
Virginia
seem
were,
the only hostility was the weather, I think.
yeah. But again, I mean, he's a younger guy playing in his third start on the road. I mean, a fumble is going to happen. It wasn't raining there, but it was cold. It was cold and wet, is my understanding. I was not there. We'd have to get Trace to report on what it actually felt like there, but it was very cold and wet, is my understanding. So, a botched fumble handoff, that's going to happen, right? And that's going to happen whether it's Dillon or another quarterback, right? Maybe he was trying to make a late decision and pull that ball instead of handing it off at the time, and that's what caused the fumble. I don't know. But I don't think that we were wrong about Dillon. I think that we just haven't had enough success with him yet to know if he's going to be the guy moving forward or not. You certainly can't give him praise, and you certainly can't give him a hard time for the performance he put out there on Saturday. He did well enough to manage the game at a bare minimum.
Yeah.
And I think he's got the ability to throw the ball. We've seen him make, some impressive third down conversion passes over the last few games. So I don't think we're necessarily wrong about him. I think it's just we are struggling as a team, and that's going to reflect on Dillon as the quarterback.
Yeah, I think he showed in flashes, right? I think the reality is the Arizona game set such a high bar because he played so well, and obviously the team won handily. That I think we all tried to say, hey, by the way, let's temper our expectations, but that's set such a high bar that I think it's been a challenge. I think he's a very serviceable quarterback. I think what you've seen of him, right? He can move the ball. I think he can command the offense. I think he can make the good read. I think he's had a couple of throws that have been impressive. He had one against West Virginia, was a kind of a low and outside towards the sideline on a third down to his. It seems like his number one target is Jacoby Jones.
Yep.
And so you see the flashes of that. But I was surprised. I was messaging our good friend Andy, UCF XOS, on Blue Sky now, by the way. Andy's a Blue Sky guy. And he was like, I wonder why we're not seeing EJ. The red shirt thing is over at this point. Like he won't have played enough games to worry about that. So he can play these other two games. And he was kind of wondering, like, I wonder if there's going to be a package for EJ. Would Gus even go as far as to give somebody the first half, somebody the second half, right? And so we didn't see EJ, and we don't yet know what we have there. So I asked that question because I think there's some people starting to now say, like, oh, the quarterback's not figured out yet. And I don't know that it really is, but I don't blame all of that on Dillon Risk. Could I have done without the fumble? Absolutely. If he doesn't fumble that, is this game different? Yeah, probably. Right. But I don't blame this. And I don't know that there's a ton that you can take away and say, okay, this guy, to your point, I don't think you can say this is definitely the guy to next year, no questions asked. But I also think you can't say there's no chance we can win with this guy. I think it's probably jury's still out somewhere in between.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The thing, I mean, if you want me to put on my reckless speculation hat,
what's that hat look like, by the way?
It's reckless looking,
Okay. You know what? I asked a stupid question. I get a stupid answer. Fair enough.
I don't have one handy for me at the moment.
That seems unlike you, Brian Peterson.
Yeah,
I know you have like 80 something hats, right?
Yeah, I'm really disappointed in myself here.
Desperately
looking around the room. No hat in this room.
No hat.
Yeah, so if you want to talk about the why have we not seen EJ question, I mean, I could throw out a couple things. In his presser today, I think it was the Monday presser today, Gus had mentioned that they are going to do as a team everything that they can do to send out this team on a win for the seniors on Friday against Utah. And I wonder if Gus and the coaching staff weren't trying to stick with a quarterback and keep things consistent for the team. Having found some success with Dillon throwing the ball, winning that game against Arizona, putting up an admirable performance on the road at Arizona State the following week. I wonder if Gus, who's known to stick with one guy, that's kind of his MO. I wonder if he's not just sticking to what he knows, sticking with the guy that, is the guy at the moment, so to speak. And that's why we haven't seen EJ. You could also consider the fact that perhaps EJ doesn't want to play and is, going to pull a Mikey Keene and enter the transfer portal at the end of the year. Maybe Gus and the coaching staff have made it clear to him that he's not going to be the guy moving forward. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there off the top of my head. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that we have seen enough of Dylan to know that he's not the guy, or to know if he is the guy in 2025 moving forward. That's still to be determined.
Here's the other problem. Like with this coaching staff and all the head scratching decisions we've seen, like nothing's off the table. So reckless speculation, I think that we're all entitled to that at this point, because nothing you could have said to me there would have shocked me. Yeah. Right. And I think that's the problem, is nothing would have been shocking. But we started this, you were seizing upon a moment that got captured via photograph. I don't know who captured the photograph. I wish I did. I'd love to credit the person whose photo that is. So if I'm missing it, please somebody tell me. But it's a fantastic photo, not really, of Dylan Risk walking off of the field. Helmet still on. Looks like he's about to take his helmet off. And Gus Malzahn is just losing his ever-loving mind, screaming at him as he's walking off the field, Brian. That got a little bit of attention on social. You got it?
I do have the picture here. I don't know if you can see it.
I see it,
yeah. See, here is the picture. Let's see if I can turn it. This is a great podcasting. There's the picture.
Look at this. Yep.
The post that I found it from is actually from our friend Dolly Drama. He was the one that posted the picture that I saw.
Yeah.
So
there's no way Dolly wasn't there to take the photo, so it had to come from somebody.
Yeah, I don't know where he got it from. I don't think he has anyone tagged in it. No. Yeah. It's just him posting the picture. So I'm not sure where the picture
got a lot of conversation started, because Gus is losing his mind on Dylan Risk, who is, to your point earlier, that's your second one. He was making his third career start. Obviously, I think it was early in the game too. That may have been after. I think that was after the first possession, if I remember correctly.
That was the first drive, yes.
Yeah, it was after the first possession. Thoughts on Gus just going nuclear on Dylan Risk?
I might have a different take than most folks. I don't have a problem with Gus going nuclear on a player in order to get them motivated. I don't know what kind of player Risk is. I don't know if he's the type of guy. I mean, if you look at that picture, he doesn't look particularly fazed by Gus yelling at him. He seems like he's, taking off his helmet, walking to the sideline. So I don't have an issue with Gus yelling at the player, so to speak, trying to correct a mistake, coach him, so to speak, and tell him, I'm unhappy with that decision that you made, or, that sort of thing. But the first drive, I mean, the guy's young, like we just talked about. He's, playing his third start, hasn't played a ton of ball. It seemed like it was maybe a little overblown. Maybe the picture's taken out of perspective. I don't know. But I don't have a problem with the coach going after the player and coaching him. I mean, I would love to see that. I'd rather see Gus fired up than ambivalent.
I think the reality people had a challenge with here is, and I don't know what the argument was about or what the screaming was about. Right. Perhaps before Gus said, "Hey, no matter what you do in this play, make sure you throw it to so and so," and he did. Right. I mean, we've all had those moments, right? I mean, if you're a parent out there and you tell your kid, "Don't touch that shoe," and you turn around and have the shoe in their hand, right? You're gonna be like, "I just told you." Like, we all have that reaction, and that's kind of what that looked like. I think where people get mad is like, "Hey man, where was that fire when KJ Jefferson was stinking the joint up for 5 games, right? Yeah, where was that? Where was that? Where was that vigor when KJ threw the ball right to Colorado in the goal line? Like, we didn't see it. We didn't see it then, right? I think that's the reaction. Is it feels like you have a young quarterback who you could support, you could help, you could mentor, you could guide, you could put your arm around and say, "Hey, Chief, not a good decision there. What are we thinking?" But instead, you blow his head off. And with KJ, it was just like, well, he's a darn football player, and he's been a lot of football. And I think that's where people reacted. It was like, where was this fire in week 5 when KJ was just handing the ball to Colorado and saying, "Go ahead and run with it"?
That's funny that you mentioned that, because, I mean, if you recall back to the offseason, during spring ball and leading up to spring and summer practices, Gus had he was like, "Look, we're gonna go after these guys hard, right? We're gonna make sure that we're ready to go, and I'm taking off the nice hat and putting on the mean hat, so to speak." And that was kind of what you saw in that image. And like you said, where has this Gus been all season long? We're on our 4th quarterback to start a game here, and now you're just finally getting frustrated with the situation. Certainly a unique time for UCF football. I mean, I'll be completely honest. I thought we were in trouble when the game started, and I saw
Yes,
Gus.
me too.
When I saw Gus on the sideline in a sweater vest holding a play calling sheet, I was like, "Yep, game's over. We're done. What are we doing here?" But yeah, it was a unique picture. I don't mind Gus being emotional, but let's also keep things in perspective.
Yeah, again, coach players hard. That's fine. I mean, if you're going to play sports, you're going to get yelled at. Like, that's just what's going to happen. It's just the optics of like, where was this fired up Gus when
Right.
maybe the season could have still been salvaged, or when something else could have happened. Brian, let's do our categories here. We're gonna, again, there's not a lot to really shelve more about this game. So let's just do our categories here. We have our Sons awards, our acronyms, if you will. And so let's just get that in here, Brian. I'm sure that'll kind of talk us through the rest of the game here. So I'll let you start off. The first S in Sons is satisfactory. What did you find satisfactory about the game, Brian?
Not a whole lot.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on. Next. Okay. No, so my satisfactory, I'm going to give to RJ and Kobe. RJ and Kobe, who are our seniors that were basically our entire offense in the West Virginia game. We did see Miles Montgomery come in there a little bit at the end, or I guess sprinkled throughout. But combined, RJ and where are my glasses? I have my notes here. RJ and Kobe combined for 3 touchdowns and almost 200 yards between the two of them. So, I mean, they had themselves, again, what we've come to know from these two players. I mean, I could give them better than that. We know what Kobe and RJ are at this point. They're just stud players. So they're going to get my satisfactory. I'm not giving out a whole lot of stars for the game this week, just because the performance was not what we wanted to see. But Kobe and RJ were the bright spots.
And RJ, I believe, ties Kevin Smith's touchdown record.
Does, yes.
And so with one game to go against Utah, he has a chance to break that record and take the top spot. Something he talked about on Monday in his press availability, how that was a goal of his, and he was hoping to break the record. Gus indicated that he would do everything in his power to make sure RJ gets that record as well. So definitely a nice tip of the cap. And, I don't disagree with that. I mean, listen, we couldn't have asked for a better representative for UCF than RJ Harvey, right? And what he's done for the Knights, stayed here, local kid, and all he's contributed. Kobe's done the same. I think he's been a little bit more up and down, right? But I think Kobe's largely to the same. He had a big drop in the game, though. I would have loved to have seen him great, but we're staying positive here today. But yeah, I think for those guys and a host of others, by the way, you're going to walk on senior night. That was a nice one. My satisfactory is a guy whose name I don't even know that we would have talked about at the beginning of the year. I don't think we did. I don't think I could have pronounced it at the beginning of the year by the way it's spelled, but who's really come on of late and actually may end up being our best linebacker, X-Ray Alexander. 17 total tackles, 5 solo, 12 assists. He had 1 TFL. He had a QB hurry. He had a pass breakup as well. Brian, they made a change at some point. I don't know if it was post-Ted Roof or pre-Ted Roof. Deshaun Pace sort of moved back into that hybrid nickel linebacker role, and X-Ray Alexander became the second linebacker next to our friend JP Gilbert's favorite knight, Ethan Barr. And since that time, X-Ray Alexander he's been all over the field. His number, he wore 24. You just saw him all over the field, making tackles, making plays, making hustle moves, getting to quarterbacks. I didn't realize till after the game was over that he had 17, total and assisted tackles. And so maybe a bright spot. I think he's back next year too. So perhaps that's a depth piece that we can leverage into next year's defense. And we came in this year saying, man, this linebacking core is going to be better, man. We got Ethan Barr. We had Deshaun Pace. And at the end of the day, it may have been X-Ray Alexander, who is the best linebacker overall.
If you had gone back before the season started and I asked you, we're going to have a star player towards the end of the season, and we're going to refer to him as X, I don't think that you would have referred to X-Ray Alexander as being the player.
That X isn't even on the team anymore.
Exactly. Xavier Townsend no longer with the team, but at least with X-Ray Alexander, we still get to throw up the X, which is a lot of fun when he makes a big play. But yeah, like you said, he had a great game against West Virginia on Saturday.
And it's interesting to think about, like, I know we're going to talk about Gus here in the next segment and kind of the state of the program, but this kind of harkens back a little bit to, I think, some of the glory days, I'll put that in air quotes, of UCF and how they sort of got to where they are, right? It was finding guys like X-Ray Alexander who maybe 2-star, maybe 3-star, maybe discarded, maybe not recruited, and bringing them in and developing them and letting them play. And they became, great players, right? We got all excited about Ethan Barr because of his past, his experience, his hair, maybe
pedigree. The hair. Yeah.
We all got all excited about Deshaun Pace. He had a great year a couple of years back with Cincinnati. And again, it's kind of a microcosm of where we are at UCF is all the stars, all the names, all the big schools. And it's guys like X-Ray Alexander, last year, Jason Johnson. It's guys like that who are really coming in and making plays. It's not some of these big name guys we're always thinking about, right? And that's kind of back when you and I were still matriculating on the campus. That's how UCF made their druthers.
I like that.
That's matriculating and a druthers in the same sentence, is finding a 2-star Josh Sitton and making him a basically an NFL Pro Bowler, right? And a UCF Hall of Famer. And X-Ray Alexander is a bit of a throwback to that, in my opinion.
Yeah. These are the types of players that you want to see from, a football program standpoint, is you want to see these younger guys come in where you can develop them and make them into something special. And that's really what UCF football has been known for in the past, right? Taking these guys who maybe didn't get an offer from their first school that they wanted to go to, or they wanted to play a specific position and they didn't get offered to play that position. So they came to UCF in order to play that position instead. I think of a guy like Blake Bortles, for example, who had plenty of offers, right? He had plenty of offers to go play elsewhere, but they wanted him to play tight end and he really wanted to play quarterback. So UCF offered him that opportunity. He came in, and not only did he get to play quarterback, he got to, get developed into a number 3 pick in the NFL draft the year that he went. So UCF has been known to find these diamond in the rough players and develop these guys. And X-Ray Alexander is certainly an example of a player that you see come in, get to learn how to play the position that he's in, and get out there and prove himself.
Here's a homework assignment for the audience. Either if you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video. If you're watching on or listening rather on podcast, find Brian and I on social media at Sons of UCF at Brian W. Peterson.
I'm the guy tweeting about gold.
Tell us, who is the defensive MVP for this team? Because I'm looking at the list and I don't know what my answer is. Lee Hunter, maybe, but I'm curious who people think the defensive MVP of this team is. So again, if you're watching on podcast, YouTube, hit us in the comments. If not, send Brian and I a message, tag us on social media someplace, and tell us who you think the defensive MVP is, because I'm struggling to figure it out myself.
Yeah, that's a great question. Certainly a couple names that you could choose from, but I don't know that any one player necessarily stands out off the top of my head. I'd have to go in and look at the stats and see how they stack up against each other. That's an interesting question that you bring up, Adam. I hadn't thought about that. I guess we're getting to the point of the season where you need to be looking at, who is the defensive player of the year, who's the offensive player of the year, since we're effectively at the end of the season on Friday. We're not going to a bowl game, so buckle up, folks. The last game of the season is here. Not going bowling.
Breaking news. While you ponder that, Brian, what's your oh my god? What's your oh?
Oh my god. Of course, my phone. Okay, so oh my god. Leading off from the fact that we are not going to a bowl game this season, the oh my god is this is arguably the worst team that we have seen UCF put on the field since 2015. That's probably going to be a harsh take to some folks, but I mean, I don't see how you can give any team that came before this team after 2015 the benefit of the doubt over UCF. Maybe 2016, but I'd argue that they made a bowl game and showed progress. They went from winless to winning 6 games in their first year under first-year head coach Scott Frost at the time. So I'm going to say that, oh my God, this is the worst team that we have seen UCF field from a wins perspective, not necessarily from a talent perspective. I think that we have plenty of talent. And I think that that's what makes this so mind-boggling and head-scratching, is that we have the players, we have the pieces, and we have a coaching staff that should be able to win with these pieces. And yet here we are looking at best, a 5-7 season, which is just mind-blowing. So I'm going to say my, oh my God, worst team that UCF has fielded since 2015.
It's interesting. I'd have to look at talent and all that stuff. I can tell you, I feel this definitively. And again, this may be a hot take. This is the most disappointing team we've had since 2011. right? That 2010 team, if everyone remembers, we went 11-3. We won the Liberty Bowl.
Yep.
Jeff Godfrey's coming back. Bortles is there. Like we've got a squad. And that next year, we ironically enough go 5-7, right? And I think that was a year where I think there was a ton of expectations in that team, and it just didn't pan out. You mentioned 2016. I think the bar was low, right? Like,
Yep.
We won that first game in South Carolina State, the first Frost, and we were all excited because we finally won a game, right? Like the bar was really low. The only other season I would throw in there maybe is 2020 and the 6-14, but it was COVID.
Yeah,
kind of a weird
there's an asterisk on that.
Yeah,
one.
and that's the one where Dylan Gabriel throws for 600 yards and we lose on a missed extra point or field goal by Obarski, right? That's the only other year where I go, okay, that was a little bit wonky, but I'm willing to put an asterisk on that. So it's the most disappointing Knights team that I can think of since 2011.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. And again, this is not due to lack of talent, right? I mean, we talked about, we've got the seniors going out on Friday, their senior game against Utah. We have a locker room that's full of talent. And I know that the coaching staff and the rest of us have been trying to figure out why this has not been working this season, right? The talent is there. The ability for these players to win these games is there. We just have not been able to get the results we're looking for. And as a result, you got to argue that it's the worst team that we put on the field since 2015 when we went winless.
It's not good enough, Brian.
Not good enough. My not good enough is going to be our overall team stats against West Virginia. Let me bring them up here real quick. Give you a little highlight, a little taste, so to speak. Okay, so overall stats. Yes, the game was 31-21, like we said, not quite as close as the score might indicate. UCF was 3 of 9 on converting third downs and 50% on converting fourth downs. They only went 1 of 2. However, on the flip side, they let West Virginia complete 4 out of 4 fourth down conversions. So again, the defense really struggling on third and fourth down, could not get off the field. Really struggled with stopping West Virginia. We made Garrett Green, the West Virginia quarterback, and Neil Brown, the West Virginia head coach, look like a Heisman candidate and Coach of the Year candidate for two guys who aren't really loved in West Virginia right now. We got a lot of players calling, or not players, a lot of fans calling for West Virginia to get rid of Neil Brown, and yet here we are making them look like these stars against UCF. UCF gave up 8 penalties. So again, penalties seeming to be a problem for the Knights. And we turned the ball over one time, whereas Virginia, we couldn't get any turnovers with them. So yes, we did gain more yards as a team than West Virginia did. But other than that, the stats just were not pretty. Time of possession was nearly 2/3 for West Virginia to 1/3 for the Knights. So not a strong performance statistic wise from the Knights. So that's just not going to cut it, and it's not good enough.
Well, and especially here's, I thought about the defense and how they played overall, and you can, I mean, they made plays, but I think the fourth quarter, this is the microcosm of the game statistically. If you want to talk about our fourth quarter, West Virginia, 0 for 5 on third down. Hey, that's great. We stopped on third down. We got off the field. Hey, great job, team.
Yeah.
3 for 3 on fourth down.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the challenge. Is it felt like we would make a play here, make a play there, and then they would 3rd and 9, they'd get 10. Right. We make a play, make a stop, third, and they make a play. Right. And it felt like, especially towards the end of the game, we were getting stops, you were playing well, and then they go for a fourth down and they get easy conversions, right? So that was the microcosm of this game in a nutshell for me is, oh, great, third down. All right, we stopped him. Oh, they're going for it. Okay, cool. First down. And that just 3 times it happened in the fourth quarter. That's the time we needed the ball back. We needed a break. We needed a turnover. We needed some sort of momentum, and we could just never get it.
And those conversions, I would point out, they weren't close to the yard to gain. Right. So we're talking 3rd and 12, 3rd and 8, 4th and more than just 1 a lot of times. So it wasn't like they had to just pick up 1 yard to get the conversion and keep the drive going. We're talking 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, 3rd and long, 4th and long in many of those plays. And West Virginia continued to just have success, and the defense could not get off the field.
Yeah, 2 of them were on that scoring drive. They had a 4th and 3. It was a 10-yard pass, and then they had a 4th and 9, and they had an 18-yard pass, right? So 2 of them were on that last scoring drive and ended up obviously killing UCF. So I skipped my oh my God for a purpose because I'm going to tie it into my NGE, not good enough. So my oh my God was, oh my God, we actually caught a punt and ran with it. Like a punt actually landed in the arms of a player wearing UCF's logo, and that player literally took the football. Check this out, Brian, and ran in a forward motion.
He didn't wave.
No,
he didn't
no,
wave
no.
it off. Okay.
No, ran in a forward motion towards where the like those little funny upright thingies are. He ran in that direction and did so really, really well. That was Mac McWilliams I'm referring to. Brian, he had I want to make sure I get this correct. He had a 27-yard punt return. When's the last time we said UCF had a 27-yard punt return? Right? When's the last time that happened, Brian?
We had our group chat going on during the game, and I was texting in all caps. Was that Mac McWilliams out there returning punts?
Yeah.
Where has this been all season?
27 yards. I didn't have time to look this up, and I don't know how to. I guess I can try it. That may be the longest punt return we had all year. I don't know if Xavier Townsend had something earlier in the year. I can't recall off the top of my head because the season's been so long and so crappy that I don't remember. But 27 yards, Brian. Oh my God, we caught a ball on a punt and we ran forward with it. Not good enough is it got called back for a penalty, and that is my not good enough for UCF. Brian, the penalties on Saturday they came at tough times. A bunch of false start. Illegal motions, like 3 offsides on defense, which I feel like you don't see all that often. But the clap apparently was really throwing off our team. 8 for 58 on the penalties. There was a terrible one on Chase and Johnson that ended up getting called for a pass interference, which the other official threw, and you can kind of see him holding the jersey, whatever. 8 penalties, 58 yards. And oh my God, we caught a punt is wiped out by NGE. And it was a quote unquote blindside block, which questionable call, by the way. I don't know if I love that call. But just every week it feels like it's a whack-a-mole. There's always something that kind of gets in our way. Another game of some just head scratching penalties for UCF. 8 for 58, not going to cut it.
Yeah, stubbing the toe comes to mind, right? That's what UCF is doing in these situations. If we find ways to stub our toe, and any positive that you see immediately gets wiped out. So 27-yard punt return, back it up, throw the flag, which the refs have been doing on us all season long.
Last but not least, Brian, star. Hey, who you got?
Hey, star. The positive that we get to take away from this game is gold face mask. The gold face mask. Just an absolutely fantastic addition to our wardrobe. I don't know if UCF equipment has been holding these and waiting for the right time to drop them all season long. It was certainly a surprise for me when they announced that they were going to be throwing on gold face masks to the helmets against West Virginia this week, but it looked absolutely fantastic. We've never seen gold face masks, and the gold is not like a chrome gold. It's like an actual gold. It looks gold.
Looks gold. Got it.
It looks gold. It's not, they have
gold that looks gold.
Some of the helmets like Wake Forest and South Florida will wear gold, chrome helmets. Okay. And it's shiny, it's pretty, but it's not really like a gold look. This looks like a gold bar. I don't know. It's a beautiful looking addition to our wardrobe. I'm disappointed that we didn't throw some more gold in there a little bit more, but this gold face mask, absolutely fantastic. It was the one bright spot. The teams, the photos that they had shown before the game kicked off just looked so good. And I know that many of you were shaking your head because I'm talking about uniforms, but it was the bright point. It was the star for this game was the gold face mask.
I can't wait for the closed captioning on the show. So when it says it's gold, not gold, but like gold, but really gold. I cannot wait for the closed caption to try to pick up what the hell Brian just said for the last 2 minutes there. Yeah, they were okay. I mean, it was a good look. I liked it. I mean, I wish we had won in it. That'd have been better. I am one that, I mean, I'm certainly on the spectrum of Christian Simmons. And then on the other side,
he's the only one that's going to appreciate.
Well, on the spectrum of Christian Simmons and UCF Mike and uniforms, I'm probably somewhere in the middle, a little closer to the Christian side than the UCF Mike side. I do like creativity. I do like when you kind of mix things up. I do like the ability to try some new things, but I don't always want to go overboard. So again, on this, if the spectrum is Christian to Mike, I'm closer to the Christian side. But they're okay.
It's the only thing we have going for us.
I'm not saying it's not,
let me have this.
Until we bring Pewter back, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Yeah.
My star of the game. Okay, I'm sorry.
But sorry, I didn't mean to
want to get. I know face mask gold. It was not gold. But it was gold.
It was the Arizona game, and I don't think I've mentioned this before. I did run into one of the assistant athletic directors at the tailgate for the Arizona game, and we had a lengthy conversation about bringing back Pewter. And I let him know my thoughts that Pewter needed to make a return. We should never have gotten rid of it to begin with. And he actually agreed with that perspective that, he thought that Pewter and even Anthracite were good additions to the uniform set. Did not give me an actual reason as to why we got rid of them.
Very much.
So, yeah, that's the speculation. But I did voice that opinion. So everyone that loves Pewter know that I was standing up for the Pewter enthusiasts out there, and hopefully one day we will see the return of Pewter.
I'm with you on Pewter. My star, and I'm going to take this a different direction. Allow me, Brian, if you will, to brag on our friends, brag on our guys, Trace Trelko and Robert Aronoff, 2 letters, 2 words, who attended every single road game this season and provided coverage throughout the entirety of the season. Places like Ames, Iowa, and Morgantown, West Virginia, and Arizona's not so bad, so I don't want to knock on Arizona.
But it's not close.
Yeah, it's not. Gainesville, obviously pretty close, but to get to every road game, to be there to provide coverage on the field, post game interviews with coaches, players, the opposing coach, putting together packages. Robert's been doing a tailgate series where he goes around and tries to meet a bunch of fans. That's been an interesting. And you should see that one of these days. Maybe this summer when I'm bored, I'll release the blooper reel,
the bloopers,
the clips that didn't make it onto the cut, because Robert meets some interesting characters that aren't quite ready for airtime, but. Kudos, hats off, big thank you to Trace and Robert for getting out there and getting to every game, providing us coverage. It's been a rough year, and so I can only imagine. I know how, Brian, you and I feel watching these games on our couches, and after we turn the TV off, I just go about my normal life and call it good. Yeah. I mean, Robert and Trace are still stuck in Morgantown, West Virginia after that. So
hotel rooms, airports,
a lovely Hampton Inn, I'm sure nearby. So kudos and a big thank you to Trace and Robert for what they do, what they provided, and for really the sacrifice, right? Because it screws up their lives. They got to go out of town. They got to move appointments around, other stuff too. So big thanks. The stars of this game, in every game, Robert and Trace.
Yeah, that it's dedication. I don't think a lot of folks realize how much planning has to go into, setting up that travel plan. Every other week or so, you're traveling to obscure places that, we're not in the American anymore. We're not talking about going to Houston and New Orleans, right? We're talking about Morgantown and Ames, and these trips are not quick. Jump on a plane, fly over to Las Vegas, that sort of thing. These are, obscure places in this truck stop conference that we're in the Big 12. That
you went truck stop, okay?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and I love the truck stop conference. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, but I mean, Trace and 2 letters, 2 words. They've had to go out and plan these trips and be present for more than one night. Trace has got to get out there. He's got his tripod with him. He's got his camera. He's asking questions. He's in the pressers with the post games. I mean, he's doing all of this work for all of you and all of us. So kudos to them and thanks for their hard work. Absolutely.
Trace always brings his tripod with him, Brian. And here's the problem. They only saw one win. They only saw one win at TCU all the way back in September. And that's kind of really a home game for Robert. He lives in Dallas. So that was a drivable trip, right? So the rest of the time, they didn't see a single win on the road. They had to deal with a cranky Gus every time at the post game. And then they had to try to travel back through connections. It's not easy to get to Ames, Iowa, as I understand it. I know Trace had a connection. I think the Arizona State game. Luckily, I think West Virginia. I think they flew direct to Pittsburgh and then drove to.
I learned that this week that Pittsburgh is the closest international airport to Morgantown.
So not always easy travel logistics, but again, stars of the game and of the season, Robert and Trace. Before we were recording, Brian, you told me something. This is the first time this has happened, and I want to make sure we save time for this. I believe you have a top 5.
I do have a top 5. Are we doing this now? Are you ready?
Let's do it now. I don't want to wait because I don't know what I'm going to get here. Let me get some sound effects ready because this could be good. You don't make it on the Sons of UCF until you get a top 5. It's pretty much, it's like, you're pledging a fraternity until you get that pin or whatever. It doesn't count. This is This is a watershed moment for Brian David Peterson. He's going to attempt his first ever Sons of UCF top 5. I can't wait, Brian. I am ready. What setup do you need? What can I do? How do you need help here?
I sincerely apologize in advance because this is my first top 5. That top 5 that you just set up. These are not good, but they are the best that I could come up with. So we have,
just as a general rule, everybody out there, if you're young, apologizing before your first time is not good. just not.
I just want to keep things in perspective.
That expectation's low. All right,
let's keep the expectations low. Okay, top 5, because we are not going to a bowl this year. I thought before Adam and I got on to record our post-game pod, I would come up with something to lighten the mood, keep things a little more fun. So I have for you, ladies and gentlemen, a top 5 bowl jokes. Top 5 bowl jokes. Are you ready, Adam?
I could never be more excited than I am right now.
Okay. All right. Number 1.
Whoa. We start with 5, right?
Number 5. You're I'm already messing this up. I'm already messing it up.
All right. It's number 5.
Okay. Number 5.
Okay, number 5. Right.
Number 5. Okay. I wanted to make a soup that tasted like the ocean, but I couldn't find a bowl big enough for all the salt.
I'll give you a win on that one. Okay. You threw the salt in there. I didn't know where it was going. We are salty as a fan base right now. There's a lot of hurt feelings. So I'm going to give you
there's a lot of salt in the ocean. Okay.
I'm also going to try to be a good teammate here. You know, hey, you took your first shot. Hey, hit rim. Way to go. Let's keep it up, buddy. Keep shooting. All right.
There are no 3-pointers in this one. Okay.
Well, luckily. What do we got? Okay. What's next? Number 4.
Number 4. Why did the bowl get bad grades?
I don't know, Brian. Why?
It was always getting things mixed up.
I guess, is it a mixing bowl?
Mixing the bowl, man.
Okay.
Jokes, guys. I mean, there's not a lot of work here. Okay.
All right, you're 1 for 1. All right, I see where we're going here, but you have time to rebound now. You're on number 3. Time to rebound.
Number 3. Okay. My friend tripped and dropped his bowl of chili. He said it was an accident, but I think it was Nacho's fault.
That just reminds me of The Office, which is funny.
The bowl of chili, yeah.
So that's the only reason that I gave that one a winner sound there. I do like nacho cheese. Who doesn't like a good nacho? So I'll give you that one only because I'm hungry.
All right, number 2.
Oh boy.
I told my friend I was going to become a professional bowler. He said to spare him the details.
I like that only because I made a thumbnail for YouTube this past week, which was Gus his head photoshopped on a bowler's body. And I thought it was hysterical. I don't know. That's the thumbnail I want them to remember me by, Brian. When this is all said and done, that's the thumbnail I want. Like wherever it is that someone may remember the Sons of UCF. So I'm gonna go. I like the bowling thing. I'm with you there. So I'll give you a yes, even though
I'm sure most folks are asking us to spare.
So this is number 1. This is the top of the top. This is the best one. This is number 1. You went through the list and you said
this is the one that's going to kill. Whole joke I've got for you.
All right.
Yep. Are we ready? Drum roll.
I've never been more ready.
All right. What did the toilet say to the bowl?
I don't know, Brian. What did it say?
You look a little flushed.
All right. There we go. The end of Brian's first ever top 5. All right. How do you feel?
A little flushed.
Yeah, you look a little flushed.
Yeah, I feel a little flushed.
You look a little flushed. As did UCF on Saturday, as did Gus Malzahn in the post-game press conference. After that, we're going to take a quick break. Brian and I are going to come back, and we're going to review everything that happened after the game ended on Saturday. Don't you go anywhere. We are the Sons of UCF. And don't forget, we're brought to you by our good friends at Werner, Hoffman, Greig, and Garcia. The Sons of UCF is brought to you by Alumni Hall. Look, being a supporter of your university is more than a diploma on the wall. It means cheering them to victory and singing the fight song. It's a part of who you are. And Alumni Hall understands the need to showcase that school spirit and pride in every day of your life. That's why they're proud to have their new shop located at 4100 North Alafaya Trail, dedicated specifically to UCF merchandise. If it's UCF gear you want, from a unique selection of clothing for the entire family, Alumni Hall has you covered. They are now the hometown college store for our great fan base here at UCF. Again, check them out, 4100 North Alafaya Trail, or go to alumnihall.com, search UCF to make sure you are a part of the action. All right, thanks for coming back. Brian, we talked about obviously the results of the game, 31-21. UCF drops another to West Virginia. 4-7 on the year. This snaps the bowl game streak at 8 straight years, the first back-to-back losing seasons for UCF since that 2015-2016. I think at this point, you said it in the first segment, things are bleak. Things are not looking fantastic. There's not a lot of hope, not a lot of optimism, and some folks are really, really frustrated. And this week got interesting because prior to the game, a couple of national media outlets, including CBS Sports, when talking about coaching changes and coaching carousels, there was some commentary made potentially about Gus Malzahn stepping away and retiring. Nothing was reported as a fact, but there's a lot of conversation. I believe the quote from Brandon Marcella was, "If Gus wants to return," which gave a lot of people the thought that maybe Gus was going to bow out. If you've seen Gus at press conferences of late, he certainly has looked a little bit more dejected. But obviously, with a losing season, that could be it as well. And so, post game, Gus strides to the podium and is answering questions. And our good friend Chris Boyle, who you can find on the debut episode of To Your Point, by the way, on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, says, "Hey, Gus, there's been a bunch of rumors out there about retirement. Like, what do you think of that?" And Gus says, "I don't know where that came from. Quote, I'm not retiring." And that collective noise you heard was a fan base probably groaning and grunting and every
Throwing their
other
hands up.
word that you can't imagine, Brian. So let's get into the Gus talk at this point. We've talked about this a few other episodes of the show. It continues to be a topic, but again, with some of the rumors and now Gus's statement, where are you at with the current state of Gus, and what do you think this means in terms of his status at UCF next season?
So there's a couple different things that come to mind. One, the first thing I'll point out is that because UCF is having such a poor season in 2024 and didn't have a really great season in 2023 either, something you may have noticed is that a lot of the national talking heads in college football aren't really talking about UCF, right? So we've become an afterthought. We're not in any of the discussions that you hear on College Game Day. They breeze over our games, so to speak, if they talk about us at all. So it was interesting for, I think it was at 247 to talk about these potential coaching changes that we could see at UCF. And they actually threw out this list of coaching names that they could expect to even see interest in if the UCF head coaching position were to become available. And the interesting thing about that is not necessarily the names that were on the list to me. The interesting thing was that they were actually talking about this. And it's my understanding that most of these types of things don't really get attention unless there is a reason for them to be talking about those specific things. So it leads me to believe that somebody somewhere told somebody that they were either UCF was considering a change or Gus was considering a change and considering stepping down or something to that effect. There had to be a reason, a catalyst for this to become a discussion for 247. So that was really the interesting thing for me. There were some names that they threw out there that were quite frankly ridiculous. John Gruden is not coming to be the head coach at UCF.
Please don't come to be the
coach. But the interesting thing of note was the fact that they were talking about this, and that led me to believe that there could be a potential that we see a change at the head coach position, despite what Gus has said. I mean, I wasn't surprised to hear his response in the post-game presser that people had talked about his retirement and, what did he think about that? Was he going to retire? He gave the only answer he could give, right? Which is, I'm not retiring. I don't know where that came from. I don't think that Chris actually expected to get a response saying, "Oh yeah, I'm considering that, and sure, I'll let you know next week." I mean, that's he wasn't going to say that. So anybody that was expecting him to make any sort of announcement is probably incorrect in making that assumption. But I do think that there is probably talk going on behind the scenes between Gus and Terry. For those of you that don't know, Gus's buyout is it's enormous at this point. We did just extend him not too long back, and that leaves his buyout somewhere around $12 million, which is simply put money that UCF does not have. So we cannot go in and outright fire him. We simply do not have the resources to do that. The only thing that could happen is that Gus decides to hang it up, and maybe Terry is able to bargain with Gus in some way and say, look, you gave it a good run. It's working. We're going into season 5. Your seniors are graduating. You're going to have a situation where you're in a rebuild mode next year. Do you really want to come back and do this again? Let's find a middle ground. Maybe we shake hands and part ways at $6 million, and you get bought out of your contract early. You get to retire. You get to go do sports casting. Join the Big Noon kickoff team and talk sports and take some of this pressure off of your shoulders. But anyone who was expecting an announcement to come post game West Virginia, it just wasn't going to happen. And I think that we may hear something moving forward, but we also may not. I mean, we're in a situation, like I said, where UCF does not have the ability to fire Gus. I don't know that Terry would take the steps to fire him, even if they had $12 million lying around. He is still Gus Malzahn. He is still a name that's highly touted and recognized in the sport of college football. And he was Terry's hire. It's not like Terry came into a position where he inherited Gus. He was the athletic director that hired Gus, and he has worked with Gus at prior institutions at Arkansas State. So I don't know that we're going to see Gus fired, but there could be a situation where towards the end of the season, after the season is over, perhaps Gus decides to hang it up. We'll see. We're not going to know anything before the end of the season. I would be surprised.
Yeah, a couple things to unpack there. So it's interesting. I took the opposite approach or thought process when I heard Chris's question, which I think is a fair question, and then Chris did a wonderful job asking it, saying, "Hey, there's those reports out there, Gus. You want to respond to this?" I thought that was a masterful way of asking the question, because let's face it, we're all thinking it, right? Everyone wants to know the answer, and so I give Chris a lot of credit for asking that question. But Gus is the master of saying nothing. Right. And so you could have easily said, "Hey, Gus, what do you think on these reports?" "Yeah, I'm not focused on that right now. Like, we got one game left. I'm focused on this kids in this darn locker room right now. We just lost a darn game. I got to get in there." Like, he could have easily diffused that situation, or basically gave his usual nothing answer and sidestepped the question. The fact that he looked at Chris and dead in the camera and said, "I don't know where that came from. I'm not retiring," leads me to know one thing only. Gus is a guy who knows he's got all the leverage, and
absolutely,
damn it, he's going to use it, right? And so, to me, I take that as, I don't take that to mean that Gus wants to stay or that Gus will stay, but I take that for Gus to mean I'm not retiring. I'm owed $12 million if I'm not here next year. So if I'm not here next year, then I'm not here with $12 million, right? And so I think there's also some nuance in the way that you could parse anything out that you want, right? Maybe it's not a retirement, right? Because think of it this way: if you, in most walks of life, and you handle people's money for a living, so you would probably know better than I. When you retire, you walk away from your job.
Yep.
Hey, I don't work here anymore. See you guys. Right? It's basically a resignation. Your company doesn't necessarily owe you anything outside of maybe a 401k or whatever you've invested, but you don't get, unless you have a contract, you don't get a salary to walk away. So if Gus retires, in theory, he's leaving his job. He's resigning his position. Ergo, he's forfeiting the remainder of his contract. So for him to say I'm retiring basically means he's walking away from $12 million. Raise your hand out there if you're watching or listening to this and you'd walk away from $12 million. Put your hand down because you're lying to yourself, right? So that's the reality. Gus isn't going to say that, but perhaps they're working on a settlement. They're working on an agreement. They're working on a mutual parting of the ways, right? And so the language could be important here, right? Because I don't think Gus is going to quote unquote retire, because, and again, you handle money for a living. So if I have this wrong, Brian, let me know. But I feel like when you retire, you quit, you resign. And so unless there's something in your contract, you're walking away from your job at that point. I don't think Gus is walking away from $12 million. That doesn't mean Gus wants to be here. That doesn't mean Gus will be here. It just means he's not leaving here without what's owed to him, or without a sum of what's owed to him that him and his family are comfortable with.
Let's assume, for argument's sake, that Gus and Terry are in these negotiations, right? They've initiated the conversation, and they've had the preliminary discussions to say, look, Gus, do you want to be here next year? We wouldn't mind making a coaching change. Let's find a way to get you out the door amicably. Take this pressure off your shoulders. We know we owe you $12 million. Let's find a middle ground. Okay. So perhaps these discussions are going on in the background. If you're Gus and somebody asks you, are you retiring? Because people are talking about it. From a leverage standpoint, you're not going to say, yes, I'm retiring.
Sure.
You're saying I'm owed $12 million. We have not come to an agreement yet. Therefore, no, I'm not going anywhere. Right.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to say. I think, Adam, and that's what, most people need to realize is that if Gus walks away, he gives up this $12 million buyout.
Yeah.
If Terry fires him, he has to pay Gus $12 million. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? So the only outcome that I can see happening is that Terry and Gus shake hands and say, look, here's a $6 million check payable over, the next 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is that they come to an agreement upon. And I'm just making numbers up. I don't know what numbers they're talking about, if they're talking about this at all, I guess I should say. But just for argument's sake, they come to a middle ground, right? And Gus says, okay, I will accept the $6 million. I get to retire, hang it up. I did my job, which was to usher UCF football into the first couple of years of the Big 12. And we've accomplished that. And we had the best recruiting classes that they've ever seen, and so on and so forth. And he gets to ride off into the sunset at his own speed, so to speak. But yeah, the answer was a complete leverage response, right? I'm not retiring.
I'm going anywhere. Yeah. You don't want
anywhere.
me here anymore? Cool. We can. There's a way to work that out, right?
Exactly.
It starts with a 1, ends in a 2, and you can put a punctuation of million after it. All right.
That was business negotiation 101.
1,000%
from Gus.
1,000%. There's 3 ways this ends, right? Or doesn't end, right? So I guess way 1 is it doesn't end. Gus is back next year, and here we are, right? 2. Terry fires Gus. And to your point, he then owes him $12 million. Now, we don't have that money laying around. That doesn't mean Terry can't go try to raise that money, find people willing to buy into the buyout for Gus. But that's just one part of this equation. Then you got to go buy out staff. You got to buy out probably your new coach. You got to hire the new staff, right? So the $12 million is just to have Gus leave the property. It's not your all-in cost to make a coaching change, right? Third is there's some sort of a negotiation, right? And ask yourself, what does that benefit either party, right? I know what it benefits Terry and UCF. If you've decided, if you're Terry Mohajir, that this is not what I want for my program anymore. I'm losing fans. I'm losing donors. I don't like the trajectory of the program. Like whatever your reasoning is, if you're Terry. And in my view, there are plenty of things you could point to as why you make a change. What's Gus's motivation, right? I think the only thing, if I'm Gus and I'm motivated, is I'm basically saying to myself, okay, y'all don't think I'm doing a good job. You want me out of here. But I'm going to go on a limb, knowing Gus as little as I do, but having watched more hours of video of Gus than probably I want in my entire life. He seems like a stubborn son of a you-know-what, right? And my suspicion would be the way you leverage this if you're Terry is here's X amount of money. Go play golf for a year, recharge the batteries, and then go coach wherever you want. If whoever you want to coach, whoever you want to talk to, whatever you want to do, go coach, go recharge the batteries, and go get into a new situation and end on your terms, right? This is your opportunity, Gus, to end on your terms, start fresh, start over, start clean, get a clean break. You don't want to be here. We don't want you here, so on and so forth. And the last is obviously, I guess Gus retiring, not going to happen. The other interesting thing that happened recently, Brian, and I don't know if this is possible because I don't know the money makes sense. If you've been paying attention, Central Michigan, their head coach, Jim McElrain, retired. And then the press release said he's going to move into a new position as assistant advisor to the athletic director or something, right? Could UCF do something like that with Gus? Move out of the coaching chair, stay a part of the program as lead fundraiser, as lead, boom tweeter, whatever that title is, and then let everything kind of settle, and then Gus can move on after that. Those are your possible options, but I was surprised by the answer, Brian, because he could have easily given a nothing burger. And that showed me that Gus is digging his heels in here and he's ready to do negotiation if that's what you want to do, Terry Mohajir. And I said this a couple episodes ago, ball's in his court now, right? Ball's in Terry's court. Can he get support financially from backers and donors to do this? Does he have what it takes? Can he figure out this in a budget? Can he figure out a next coaching hire? Does he have the stones to walk away from the only coach he's hired here at UCF and hit the reset button? We're about to find out a ton about our AD over the next 10 days.
If I was a betting man, I would have to assume that if Gus wants to be here next year, he's going to be here next year. I do not think that Terry has the financial resources at his disposal to get rid of Gus. If Gus decides, you know what, we're going to run this back in 2025, I got $12 million. If you're not going to pay me that, I'm going to be here next year. I'm not agreeing to take 6 or 5 or 8 or whatever. I'm coming back next year. And if he wants to do that, it is entirely up to Gus if he wants to be here next year or not.
Yeah.
If we consider just the $12 million buyout for Gus, just the $12 million. And you alluded to the fact that there's, other buyouts that we would have to find the money for. The assistant coaches, we'd have to go find a coach, which might have a buyout of his own, right? So just the $12 million, UCF athletics budget that Terry has to work with is about $90 million a year. So we're talking more than a tenth of his entire athletics budget just to get rid of Gus in one fell swoop. So from a financial perspective, it is just not going to happen. Terry does not have the financial resources to fire Gus on the spot. And Gus knows that, right? So that's exactly what his response was indicating, was that, look, I'm not going anywhere and you're owing me $12 million. So if there is a change, it has to be a meeting of the minds. Gus has to decide, maybe UCF, I've taken it as far as the program can go in the day and age of NIL collectives and the transfer portal, and maybe I want to take something and retire or take a position with the university in another way and actually step down from that head coaching position. But I would be surprised if that is the course that he takes, just because that is what Gus is, right? He is a head football coach. This is what he's done his whole career. So very interesting to see.
He's a former high school coach. I don't know.
Was he? I did not know that. Yeah, he's never mentioned that at all.
You coach high school. How much blame? And we're talking a lot about Gus in this situation, right? And rightfully so. How much blame or how much shade should go towards Terry Mohajir?
That's an interesting question. If you want to take the perspective that Gus has given all season long, that the buck stops with him. Terry is the one who's running the athletics program, right? He's the one that brought in Gus to begin with. He's the one that extended Gus a couple of years ago and put us into this buyout situation. From obviously hindsight is 2020. Looking back, we all know where we are now. I'll take you back a few years. At the end of the 2020 season, we talked about that being the COVID year and that having the asterisks on it. A lot of us, myself included, not very high on where we were as a program, right? Danny White had just left to go take the job at Tennessee. We were finishing the season 6-4. We'd gotten blown out by BYU in the Boca Bowl. And Josh Heupel was our coach. And a lot of us were just not really feeling the vibe, so to speak, of UCF football. Where are we going to go from here? We got blown out in our bowl game, 6-4. It feels like we've been regressing. We hadn't gone or won or played for a conference championship in a couple of years at that point. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, in a matter of a week, we went from, what are we doing? Josh Heupel has got 4 play calls that he runs and the defense can't do anything, to all of a sudden we have a new head coach from the SEC with, all of this pedigree and caliber behind him. And I was extremely thrilled for the fact that we went from Josh Heupel to Gus Malzahn as our head coach. We were getting an automatic upgrade and we were getting paid to upgrade our head coach. So at the time, I was thrilled with the decision that Terry made to bring Gus on, right? It seemed like it was a no-brainer. We're getting this SEC coach and, the sky's the limit for this program. So I don't really know that you can necessarily blame Terry for bringing Gus on. I don't think anybody in their right mind would say Terry made a bad decision hiring Gus. The only way that you could really maybe fault Terry is the extension. But even the extension taking place in today's college football landscape, those extensions take place all the time, right? We see coaches get these 1 and 2 year extensions because it's necessary for the recruiting process, right? Players want to know that they're coming to play for a coach who is going to be there when they get there. And that has become a problem for a lot of recruits over the last few years. And why the transfer portal has become such a powerful tool for these players is because you'll get a player that commits to play for a university and a specific coach. And by the time they get there, their coach is gone, right? And especially with a program like UCF, which has been a stepping stone for a lot of the bigger programs to come in and poach our coaches, it's something that has to happen. So I don't know that you can necessarily fault Terry for extending Gus, but he certainly is the result, is the person that you would point to for the position that we're in, needing to find $12 million to buy Gus out if that's what we decide that as a university we want to do.
Yeah, no, I think to me, that's the right take, right? Because so Gus got extended. Well, again, first, people often, and this is going to sound like a defense of Terry and or Gus, and I really don't mean it to be that. It's simply just adding the context, right? The first knock on the extension is that it got announced after UCF lost in spectacular fashion to Baylor, right? You and I both know that that contract was done way before that. It just got leaked to everybody after the Baylor game, right? So that was done heading into the Big 12 season. And you said something I pulled up just to have the stats when that essentially was extended. So I don't know that I have the exact date either. I don't know that we know that, but let's assume it's for before the 2023 season, right? Before UCF's first year in the Big 12. Prior to that, Gus was making $2.3 million, which would have put him as the lowest paid coach in the Big 12. That extension raised his base to $4 million, which still puts him in the lower threshold of Big 12 coaches, but at least gets him a little bit closer. If there's anything you can squibble with, I think it is the buyout language. It is the buyout language to say, Terry, why would you agree to, these high numbers that we would owe our coach if he's not here? I suspect if you ask Terry in an honest moment in 2023, he probably was more concerned about Gus leaving us and getting money back for Gus poaching or leaving to go to Arkansas or wherever versus us having to get rid of Gus, right? But that's why they pay you to be in that shares to protect against the downside, right? To protect against anything that could happen, because reality is anything actually could happen. Gus's agent is Jimmy Sexton. If you don't know who he is, Google him. He's really good at getting his coach's money. Do you know, Brian? I actually don't know the answer to this question. I wonder if you know either. So when we're gonna hire Gus or we're gonna negotiate with Gus, is it actually Terry who's doing the negotiations, or are there lawyers from UCF? Are there negotiators that we bring in? Right? Because I know it's not Gus. It's Jimmy Sexton sitting at a table. Is he talking to Terry? Is he talking to university lawyers? Is he talking to President Cartwright? Like, who negotiates on UCF's behalf? Do you know?
They're all involved. I mean, the university has a set of attorneys that work for them, and athletics has dedicated attorneys as well. So I'm sure that the negotiation process goes through a thorough review process, so to speak. I don't know if Terry's, I mean, obviously he's not the one drafting the contract, but he certainly sees it and agrees to it before hands are shaken.
Gotcha. And so I think that's the thing. If you want to give Terry any shade, I don't blame him, to your point about, that's the fourth, I think, about giving the extension, because at that time, optically, I think you had to do that if you wanted to try to get momentum going to the Big 12. So that I get it. And even the jump in salary from year to year, that I get. It's now handcuffing yourself, and Terry's not alone, Brian. Every AD is just tripping over themselves. Mike Norvell's owed like $80 million if they get rid of him at Florida State. Brian Kelly's owed like 70 something. I just saw Kurt Signetti, who just got re-upped at Indiana. They owe him like $30 million next year if they fire. Like, ADs are just absolutely drunk with buyout money, and good for agents, by the way, because they're clearly raking people over the coals. But here's the question I have for you. So using all that as the backdrop, how the hell did we get here, Brian? How did we get here that in November of 2024, we are looking at a situation where, by most accounts, if you ran a poll right now and said, do you want Gus back at UCF? I'm going to guess 85% or greater are going to say, no, I do not. How did we get here now? What is, if you look back at this as kind of as a obituary post-mortem, what's the fatal flaw? How did we get here now where if Gus retired tomorrow or walked away, there would be more rejoice in this fan base than we probably ever would have imagined?
I think that it's a combination of a bunch of factors, right? I mean, that's usually what, and I want to be careful how I put this. Okay. Before we talk about that real quick, I just want to take you back, because you mentioned this end of 2022, 2023 season, when this contract extension was announced. As you said, Terry was probably more worried about Gus leaving UCF, getting poached to go to another program, as opposed to we were of trying to get rid of him, right? Yeah. And specifically, there was a lot of rumor and conjecture that Arkansas was going to fire their head coach
Yep.
And Gus, for those of you that don't know, is an Arkansas guy. He obviously has coached at the highest levels in the SEC. He is from Arkansas. He has coached at Arkansas. And there was a lot of rumor at the time that Gus was going to be at the top of their hit list to go out and find this replacement for the head coaching position at Arkansas. And even I myself was concerned that we were going to lose Gus to Arkansas.
Yeah.
I remember distinctively thinking to myself, man, we can't catch a break even in the P4 now. You know, we're in the Big 12 and we're still getting poached. We're still in the position we were in when we were a G5 school. And that obviously did not happen. Gus stayed with the program. He did not go to Arkansas, where he has family ties and so on and so forth. So that is one thing to keep in mind when looking at the big picture as to how did we get here, right? So Baylor game happens. They make the announcement that Gus has been extended, which I alluded to.
It got leaked, actually.
You're right.
I think it was Pete Thamel who leaked it at that time. But yes, that's how we found out. Yeah.
It got leaked, which forced UCF to make the formal announcement, right? And we were all upset at the time because the timing was terrible after that terrible Baylor loss that we all still want to forget about. But how did we get here? Keeping that in perspective, I think that if you had to go back and you had to point to one thing, it's this coaching staff's ability to evaluate talent. If I had to go back and point to one thing as to how we got to where we are, it's the inability to evaluate talent in a successful manner. And I am not a football coach. I obviously do not get paid millions of dollars to know football in and out like these coaches do. But I don't think that anybody can disagree that the majority of the players that we have brought in via the transfer portal have not worked out. I don't know if that is a result of the transfer portal being difficult to evaluate, or if it's a lack of ability for these coaches to find the right talent in the transfer portal and bring them in. Let's go back and let's talk about KJ Jefferson.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that when he was brought in, the majority of us were thrilled, right? This is a guy who played at the highest levels in the SEC and had success. So sure, he's going to be able to come in and have success here in the Big 12 at UCF, right? So I can't fault Gus and the coaching staff for making that decision because I thought it was a good decision too at the time. However, a lot of these players that came in, the Nate Craig Myers, for example, the players that came in, that came in, that were brought into the transfer portal that just did not work out at UCF, right? Nate Craig Myers was a 5-star wide receiver that saw minimal playing time, right? And it's just this year after year, we've seen these players come in that the coaches have brought in, and I don't know if it's that the talent isn't there and it's a lack of understanding that these players aren't going to transition well to UCF, or they never should have been brought in to begin with, or it's lack of development. But I think there is a breakdown between the coach's ability to evaluate and put these players in a position to succeed. And that is the problem that we are seeing with the losses piling up for these last few years at UCF.
Yeah, I try to distill this down, right? So, because I agree with a lot of what you said, but I heard stubbornness in there, right, as a reason, right? Like, I think we've seen over time, Gus was stubborn to make changes. I think it's funny. I think a lot about what Kenny Dillingham said about Gus, which was the word was he was convicted over philosophy, I think was the phrase Kenny Dillingham used to describe Gus. And you think about all of the different ins and outs from coaching staff. I think 4 years now, this is the 4th offensive coordinator that we've had. We've had 3 defensive coordinators in the 4 years. Now, I guess Addison's technically the 4th, but really the 3rd. So continuity and staff hasn't been there. And I think it's a stubbornness to say this is my style. And I know football guys, air quotes, are going to look at this and say, no, Gus made changes. No, they ran less zone. They ran more RPO. They did more inside waggle. And sure, I'm sure they did. But the reality is the temperament of Gus's system never really changed very much. And you're right. He missed on some bad stuff. Right. And I think if you're going to say the final nail in the coffin, and I hate to use that phrase because that's pretty morbid, but it's going to be the KJ Jefferson thing, right? I think that's going to be sort of the final sort of piece to this puzzle of why this didn't work out, and not just bringing him in, because we all agreed, everybody out there, KJ Jefferson was voted the Big 12 newcomer of the year.
Yep.
Everybody agreed KJ Jefferson and this offense was going to be fantastic.
This was a home run
Everybody
transfer
said
portal edition.
There's one guy out there who probably didn't and has the tweet. It's like, yes, just in case this paid off. I knew I'd have this, right? And kudos to you, sir. But I think the rest of us all thought this was going to be a home run. It wasn't a home run. But I also wonder, you and I both hear things from people, right? That, we get information, whether that's important or not, I don't know. But it was coming to us very early on. But it wasn't great with KJ. That there was some stuff. I hear a child in there.
Yeah, my son just walks in the room.
There we go. Ask him if he likes KJ Jefferson, because I don't know that many people do.
Hey, buddy, can you give me a go Knights? Go Knights.
I heard it.
No.
Ask him if he has $12 million for Gus's buyout.
Do you have $12 million lying around? We need to borrow some money. Can we borrow some money? He's 3, by the way.
Okay, well that's well then.
Oh, yeah, and there's my wife. All right. We've completely gone off the rails.
Edition of the Suns. No, I think we all heard that there was things going on behind the scenes, that KJ may not be the guy, and that things weren't looking as great as we had hoped. And Gus was just too slow to make a change. And I think ultimately it'll end up costing him this season, and that could sort of be the undoing. But I'd be curious for people out there listening and watching. Again, get in the comments here on YouTube or send Brian and I messages on social media. Where's the undoing? And if this does come to an end, what's the thing that you think will ultimately be kind of that final shot across the bow that gets Gus Malzahn out of UCF?
I would be really curious to know one day, years from now, when his tenure is over, if you could ask Gus that question and what his response would be. Because, and I've had this discussion with Trace, obviously Gus is not trying to lose, right? This is not the outcome he wants.
Some would argue that with you.
Some would argue that he is, right? This is revenge for the Peach Bowl, is what they say, right? But I mean, let's be realistic. Gus is not trying to lose. He does not want to be in this situation where he's leading a program that isn't going to a bowl for a 9th straight season, right? So if you asked him, Gus, what's the problem? He would tell you, I don't know what the problem is. Otherwise, I would fix it, right? So he's obviously tried to make some of these changes. I would argue that, he was too slow to make some changes and then too quick to react to make some of the other drastic changes that he made. Maybe there was a middle ground that, maybe he was, he shouldn't have taken away play calling from
Darren Hinshaw?
Darren Hinshaw, thank you. Last year at the end,
so many options. That's why I had to go through. I'm like,
right?
Yeah,
we've had so many people calling plays, right? So why did we take away play calling from Darren Hinshaw last year? He said that it was because this wasn't working, and we had our worst season, and we went 6-7. It's the first time he's had a losing season, and he blew up the coaching staff, so to speak, and made all these changes, brought in Ted Roof. So maybe he was too quick to pull the trigger on that sort of thing, and then too slow to make a change at quarterback, sort of thing, or maybe there's a timing adjustment there. But I'd be really curious to know what he looked back on his time at UCF whenever that time is over. If you asked him, why didn't this work, or what was the struggle there? Why were we losing more games than winning more games in that 2023-2024 stretch? And curious to know what he sees from the inside out.
Yeah, I wonder if he'd ever. I'm not saying he'd lie, but I wonder if he'd ever be honest about that, though, because I think Auburn fans would tell you that he never really learned his lesson at Auburn either, right? And that he continued to say that he was doing the right thing. So I'm curious. Again, let us know in the comments. Let us know on socials what you think. Kind of the one or two things that you probably. I think a lot of people would also say player development. We talked about earlier with X-Ray Alexander. How often are we seeing these guys come in and really get a chance to develop? And maybe that's unfair to Gus because the portal is here. And, if you don't get enough playing time, you're gone after a year and you can't really develop these guys. And coaches probably this isn't the right thing to say, Brian, but I imagine coaches have to decide, like, who am I going to pour my time into? This kid here, or this kid who I think is already thinking about leaving, or this kid who told so-and-so that he doesn't like. I mean, it sucks to say that, but I imagine there's coaches out there that are making that decision now. Like, am I going to invest in this kid because he's leaving me in 6 weeks? So why am I going to there's got to be tough things like that happening all throughout college athletics.
one of the big things that coaches of today would tell you is that not only do they have to recruit players, they have to re-recruit them every year to stay, right?
Yeah.
They have to, and NIL on top of that is just another layer of complexity, right? Not only do you need to re-recruit the players to stay, hey, I'm going to, I'm going to keep you, you're going to be wide receiver number 2 right behind Kobe, and you're going to get this playing time. And oh, by the way, the NIL collective wants to pay you a check as well. So there's all of these layers of complexity on top of what college football was just a few years ago, right? And I think that Gus is probably still trying, and it's not just Gus, a lot of coaches and programs are trying to find a way to juggle all of these pieces. I think if you did a look at success rate for a lot of transfers across college football in general, you would find more misses than hits. And I think that is just because we're still learning how to transfer portal at this point and evaluate talent and figure out what the right pieces are and how many guys to bring in and, and all those pieces. And I've mentioned it before. I think that Gus would find more success if he took on more of that CEO role as opposed to the play caller and the head coach. If he brought in a young set of coordinators, a young offensive coordinator that's going to be given the reins of the offense and be able to do as they see fit, and a young defensive coordinator, and maybe that's Addison Williams already, but somebody that Gus is going to say, look, I'm taking a step back. I'm going to be the face of the program. I'm going to be recruiting. I'm going to be getting you, donor dollars, but you have full, control of the offense and the defense, and I will support you. And let's see some of these innovative ideas as opposed to Gus trying to fit that square peg into that round hole.
Let's see if that happens. I think a lot of folks who don't know if Gus has that in him. And so I guess we can find that out, Brian. But let's grab one last break, and then we'll come back. We'll do our closing rant, our nightcap. I don't know what we call these things around here, so don't worry about all that. All you need to worry about doing is checking out our good friends at Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia, who can help you. If you got any issues with hurricane damage, I know a lot of folks out there still dealing with the after effects of the latest hurricanes. Check out wernerhoffman.com, and they can give you some guidance. We'll be right back right after this. All right. We know it's been a long one. Thanks for listening, Trace. We see you out there. Thank you, by the way, buddy. All right. We know it's been a long one. So let's
he
wrap
clicked
it
off
up.
A while ago.
Yeah, there's no chance Trace is here. Oh, he's listening on like 1.8x, which is fine because that's probably the best speed for a closing rant because we get fired up about stuff. We're passionate. I've got one I've been sitting on for a couple of days now, Brian. But I'm gonna let you go first. What is your parting shot, your closing rant, your nightcap, your Sons, blah blah blah. Like, hit me with it. Give me your angst.
My Sons, blah blah blah. Okay. So my rant this week is going to be: yes, things are tough right now. This football product that we're seeing on the field is not what we hoped it would be.
Nope.
However, we have one game left on the season. We have one game left in the bounce house for this season. And it is senior night, Friday evening, 8 p.m. against Utah, a game that we probably thought was going to have conference championship implications earlier in the season. But
poor Fox, 8 p.m. on a Friday. They're like, yes.
I really don't know who's worse, us or Utah. The last time I checked, we were favored in this game.
We are still
favored.
Don't listen to that, though.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really believe we've been favored in every game we've played this season, except for not Arizona State and not
BYU,
and Iowa State. No, we were favored.
We were favored Iowa State.
Yeah. Regardless, we've lost every game we've been favored in, so it doesn't matter anyway. So, but to my point, not to your point, Adam. I want to see everybody get out and fill the stadium as best we can. Like I said, I know that things are tough right now, but this is senior night for a lot of our guys. The RJ Harveys, the Kobe Hudsons. This is going to be their last game in a UCF uniform, their last game in the bounce house. And especially a guy like RJ Harvey, who has given his heart and soul and body to this fan base and this team, who has the chance to go out and break the record for most touchdowns in school history. He deserves to have a loud crowd on Friday night. I know a lot of folks are probably traveling for the holiday and maybe can't make it there, but we're going to find out who the real fans are, because the real fans are those who show up to these types of games when the program is down, as
Wow.
opposed to the fair weather fans who only want to bark on social media and not
Wow.
actually put their foot where their mouth is. I will be at the game. My daughter and I are going. She is as hardcore a UCF fan after attending the Arizona game. That was her first game this season. So she is ready to go. She and I are driving up for the game. We will be there. Adam, are you going to be there?
We're trending to going. I've got a family commitment I'm trying to get worked out, but we are trending. We have tickets, we have hotel room. So we are trending that direction.
Celeste?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Oh, fancy.
I believe so.
Fancy. Yeah. So that's my rant this week, is that these seniors deserve to have one last loud ruckus crowd, one last home environment, be there to, watch them walk on senior night. And I mean, if you want me to add a little bit on top of that, Utah is just as bad as we are. So there is a decent chance that we actually put on a good performance and win this game on Friday. Plus, I'll put another caveat on there. This is a nationally televised game, so it's going to be on Fox. Let's not embarrass ourselves and have a half-empty stadium.
What are you allowed to go to the game, go to the senior night festivities, and then leave? Is that acceptable?
I guess if that's the alternative to not going at all,
okay.
I'll take it. All
right.
Go enjoy the tailgating. The weather should be nice. It should be not too hot and not too cold. I'll be there. Come and say hi. Tell me that you hate gold jerseys. I'll have a spirited discussion with you about it, and we can enjoy. We only get 6, maybe 7 home games a year for UCF football. Enjoy them while you can. They're tough to come by, and this is it for the 2024 season. After this, we lose college football in the bounce house for another 8 months. So enjoy it while you can. Get out there, bring the family if you can. Let's try and fill the stadium as best that we can for these seniors and send them off the right way.
That sucks, man. You can have a whole kid, but before UCF plays another home game, that's all right. My closing rant, Brian, on behalf of all society, of all citizens, it's let me look at my calendar. Yep, 2024, if I have this correct. Why
almost 2025
on earth are we still playing college basketball tournaments in hotel ballrooms? Can we stop playing games in hotels? There are arenas, there are basketball courts, there are probably pickup courts outside that are better than playing in a ballroom. UCF play in the Greenbrier and some raggedy ass hotel room. I saw the Bahamas, Bahia Mar was in a hotel room. Can we stop with that? It's 2024, Brian. There are arenas everywhere. You can find a basketball. Go to a local high school for all I care. Why are we playing these things in the Greenbrier? The shot clock wouldn't work. The TV cameras didn't. They delayed the game. The angle's got to be really weird for people. There's like 7 people in the crowd. Where are the locker rooms? Are you walking past?
The buffet is pushed off to the side while they're.
Are you walking past the bellhop to get to the locker? Right. What are we doing here playing high level college basketball games inside hotel ballrooms? I don't understand. Maybe back in 1980, all right, fine, it was cute, it was quaint. In the year of 2024 of our Lord, there have got to be other places to hold a basketball contest than in a friggin' hotel ballroom. I don't understand.
I'm willing to give them a little bit of leeway in the Bahamas. I can't imagine there's that many basketball arenas, in the Bahamas.
There's got to be one. There's got to at least be one.
But yeah, Greenbrier. I mean, what are we doing here, guys? I mean, let's find an arena. Find, like you said, find a high school arena. Right? There's plenty of them around. It got me.
It just looks it looks stupid too, Bob. I'm not gonna lie to you. It looks really stupid that you look up and you're like, why are we playing this? Why are we playing this here? There is an arena in the Bahamas, the Imperial Arena, or actually, you know what? It's a ballroom, convention space, and basketball arena. See, we're doing 4 things at once here. That doesn't count. Are you a fan of? A lot of sports do this. I don't know how you feel about this. I think I'm okay with this, but you tell me if there's a line here. Basketball in hotel ballrooms, no. Are you okay with football games being played in baseball stadiums, or hockey does the outdoor events and these big stadiums? Are you okay with people playing the sport in a place that typically shouldn't have that sport played in it?
I think that it's acceptable depending on the facility. I've been to a handful of football games played in the truck, right? Where they used
Yes.
to play
Yeah, very good.
the Gasparilla Bowl,
Rest in
and
peace to the
before that
Trop,
it
by
was
the way. I'm
yeah,
not sure it's
rest in
coming
peace to
back.
the
Yeah.
Trop. We'll see what happens. But before that, it was the St. Petersburg Bowl, and it never looks good on TV.
Nope.
So from a TV perspective, it never looks good. I have a unique perspective on football, baseball type stadium because I'm a Dolphins fan. So the Marlins
I
used to
remember.
play
Yeah.
in Hard Rock Stadium, which at the time was Joe Robbie Stadium. Actually, that was the Aflac
No.
question this week.
It was at that time it was Pro Player
It was Pro Player Park. It was
and
Pro
Pro Player
Player
Stadium,
Stadium.
Dolphin Stadium, Dolphins
Dolphin
Stadium.
Stadium,
Yes. Yeah.
Sun Life Financial Stadium, Landshark Stadium. It's gone through more names than I care to
It'll always
remember.
be Joe Robbie to me.
It'll always be Joe Robbie, but that's the whole point. So when it was built as Joe Robbie Stadium back in the day, both the Marlins and the Dolphins played there. So there was always half the Dolphins season where you would watch a Dolphins game and they had the diamond throughout the football field, and players were having to run through the clay. And so it depending on where the facility is, I don't have a problem with them playing, a football game in a basketball or a baseball facility.
Don't give it.
Yeah, bad idea.
Wow. I'm in. Let's do it in a ballroom for
it
crying
needs
out
to be
loud.
done right. It never, like I said, it never looked good in the Trop. I have never watched. What's the bowl game they play in the Yankee Stadium? I've never watched.
It's the
that
Pinstripe Bowl.
The Pinstripe
Then
Bowl.
Fenway Park has the Fenway Bowl. I think every year, I want to say it's every year, every other year, Northwestern plays a game in Wrigley Field. I remember one year, like the field was messed up or something, and they could only go one direction because it was
that sounds terrible.
It was too short or something, or like the end line was too close to like the wall or something like that, right?
Is that like Miami's indoor practice field, which is only like
pretty
the
much
50,
yeah,
like the 20 to the 20-yard line?
Correct. There's like a 17-yard practice field.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm okay with some of those one-offs if you really want to do that, but get my college basketball out of the Hilton. I don't need it. Imagine you imagine you don't know any better, Brian, and you and your family are like, hey, let's take a great vacation. It's be fun. And you get there and you're like, why is there a basketball game here? I just wanted some towels for the pool. What do we do? I just don't. Someone's gonna get hurt. I mean, you're going to break a chandelier.
Yeah.
I mean, are those baskets supported?
Do they have to take those down?
I would assume so. Yes. I mean, for players, the sight lines aren't the same. You're like, oh, there's Mrs. McGillicuddy in room 4 as I'm shooting a 3. There's just something about playing these events in a hotel ballroom. So and UCF, by the way, didn't win any of them. So maybe that's why I'm salty.
That was a tough game.
And an overtime thriller, air quotes. But yeah, that's let's just get out of hotel ballrooms. But what we want you to do is get more out of the Sons of UCF. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's probably where you're watching this right now. So thanks for doing that. We have a litany of shows for you, so you'll never be bored. All those are available on your podcast feed as well. So please check that out. New Sons newsletter, you can check that out as well. Go to our social media. You can get the link to sign up. The first edition published this week. We have a website. We have a lot going on, Brian. And it's Thanksgiving. Last wing, Brian, let me get you out of here with this. What's one thing you're thankful for UCF related? One thing you're thankful for UCF related?
UCF related one thing. You know what? I am going to say that I am thankful for you, Adam, because I'm brown nosing the boss here, guys.
Gosh,
before Adam and Mike came along, there really wasn't a lot of selection when it came to content for UCF, and I'm not talking about, like the websites that you find out there where you can go and you can find things and that sort of thing. I'm talking about fun content with videos and newsletters and, websites and all these fun things that Adam and the Sons put on. Has really brought a lot of fun to being a fan for UCF. It was something that was really needed. So I'm really thankful for you, Adam, and everything that you guys have done behind the scenes. For those of you that don't know, Adam spends an inordinate amount of time cutting, editing, putting on these shows, talking about topics and ideas behind the scenes before they actually make it to your YouTube screen. So my hat's off to you, Adam, and the rest of the team of the Sons. You guys make this a lot of fun.
You said hats off to me. You're not wearing a hat.
I'm not wearing a hat.
I don't know if you can give your hats off to somebody when you actually don't have
kudos
a hat on.
to you.
Thank you. I'll take a kudos. I don't know what that means either. Yeah, I think I want to stay in the same lane, Brian. I think, it's been a tough year, man. Like it's been a tough year. And I think what's gotten us all through this is there's a community of people who just enjoy UCF, and we talk, we commiserate, we yell and scream at each other, right? We scream at everything that's going on. But I'm just thankful that Night Nation exists and allows us all to be a part of this in any meaningful way. But I'm also grateful for guys like, or thankful for guys like RJ Harvey, guys who do such a great job of representing our university. Every day there's a story out there of a kid probably doing something we never hear. You know, I know the football guys are very active with Britt's bunch, and they give back to the community. The stuff they do at Arnold Palmer Orlando Children's Hospital is fantastic as well too. So, you know, as much as there's negativity all around the program right now, there's a lot of good that goes on, and I think we should be thankful for the kids that we do have, the people that are there to support us, and the fact that we're going to get through all this together. Brian, we're gonna get through it together.
Things have been worse in the past, guys. Don't let this get you down. I've lived through, as a fan, 2 winless seasons.
Yep.
When you think things can't get worse, that's when things start to get better. It's always darkest just before the dawn, as they say. So trust me, we'll look back in 5-10 years, and we'll look back at this and say, I can't believe we were so worked up over this. And UCF's days, best days are still ahead of it, guys. So don't panic.
Wow.
We're in a good place that, as far as a program overall. If you wanted to go back and say, hey, would you rather be back in Conference USA or the American? No, we all would choose to be here where we're at if those were the options. So, it's the times where things are toughest that make you appreciate when we start to win again. So,
all right. Well, for Terry Mohadra, Brian Peterson, I am Adam. We will see everybody again sometime next week. Have a fantastic holiday week, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and go Knights.
Charge on. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.